This is CBC Here and Now.
Today is the day the Sugary Drink Tax came into effect.
We realized it was going to take a lot more time than we expected. We've actually had one staff member working full-time on it for at least a week now.
What that's been like for retailers, that's just ahead.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We'll get to that story shortly, but first, a breast cancer survivor is calling on the province to act quickly to restore confidence in breast cancer screenings. Confidence that's been shaken after health officials announced yesterday that more than 16,000 mammography scans are being reviewed for possible errors. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
I was really disappointed and I just thought, oh my God, here we go again.
Breast cancer survivor Jerry Rogers is reacting to the news that thousands of mammography scans, some dating back to 2013, are being reviewed for possible errors. 15 years ago, Rogers testified at a judicial inquiry led by Justice Margaret Cameron. The inquiry was called after it was revealed that there were errors in hundreds of lab tests used to determine the treatments for breast cancer patients.
And the Cameron inquiry had developed such specific recommendations about quality control.
Rogers hoped the problems it identified were fixed, but news that mammography scans are being reviewed because some of them were read on substandard equipment has her questioning that. So far, Central Health says it's found 4 possible discrepancies after reviewing more than 800 images.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to reestablish the confidence in the system again.
Health Minister Tom Osborne also testified at the Cameron inquiry. He was the health minister for the Progressive Conservative government when the scandal broke in 2007. He says what he learned then is being applied now.
In this particular case, there is full disclosure. The information was shared with the department. The information is being shared with the general public as quickly as information is gathered.
But one doctor says safety concerns were flagged years ago and nothing was done. CBC News spoke with a radiologist who says Central Health was told about problems with mammography back in 2019. Dr. Jane Rendell and 2 other doctors say they warned Central Health in 2019 that the hospital in Grand Falls, Windsor was not nationally accredited for breast screening.
They just ignored us. I think we were just considered troublemakers because we had problems and we would raise them. Mm-hmm. They didn't like doctors doing that. They just wanted us to just shut up and do what we were supposed to do, and they didn't want to hear about it.
Osborne was asked about this today.
That's new information for me today. I can certainly speak with the CEO of Central Health regarding this. My understanding was from Central Health that this occurrence was brought to the attention of the CEO very recently.
Osborne says taking care of patients is the first priority. Health officials say it could be months before all the people whose scans are being reviewed are contacted with results. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the province is putting more cash on the table to get more doctors into family practice. The government is now offering $150,000 to doctors who set up a new practice or join an existing one. In exchange, the government wants a 5-year commitment from physicians. The money will also be paid to the 15 doctors who have already set up shop since October 2021 under an existing incentive program. Well, staying with health, once again, emergency services at the U.S. Memorial Health Center in St. Lawrence will be temporarily closed due to staffing issues. The emergency department will be closed from 8 a.m. tomorrow until Monday morning. Patients needing emergency services tomorrow and over the weekend should call 911 or go to the Burin Peninsula Health Center or the Dr. S. Beckley Clinic in Grand Bank.
Well, it's another warm day today across the province. Take a look at some of these numbers. 25 degrees in Bonavista today. Twillingate reached 28.1, and in fact, that is the highest temperature ever recorded in September. So Already September 1st and already seeing records broken. So 28 degrees. Now, if we take a look at what's happening outside in St. John's, we do have some fog around, down to about 20 degrees right now. That humidex, though, still 27 degrees. And those winds out of the south around 35 kilometers per hour. So taking a look at what's going on right now, we have a cold front, and that is bringing some showers that are heavy at times for parts of the west coast and really along the south coast. And that is going to continue as we head through the evening hours tonight. As you can see, lots of moisture associated with this. Rainfall warnings in place for Burgeo through to the Canagra Peninsula. And we're looking at somewhere between 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. So I'll get into the full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. A controversial tax on sugary drinks came into effect today. It's not just buyers of soda and juice navigating the new expense, but also those who sell the sugary drinks. So how is the change playing out on day one? Here now's Henrika Wilhelm asked around.
From today on, some sugary drinks cost extra here in the province, like bottled soda, fountain drinks, fruit juices, or sweetened energy drinks. All are taxed differently.
We're at 13 different size bottles that we have different taxes for every single bottle because it's by liter, not by bottle. And we also have to look at the ingredients on them as well because it's not straightforward.
Not all have found the transition to be a smooth one.
We've actually had one staff member working full-time on it for at least a week now, adjusting prices, doing the calculations that are required because it's not a straightforward tax in any way, shape, or form.
I'm still getting calls even as of today from members who are still confused, trying to implement this. Am I right or am I wrong? It's those types of problems that are going to continue to happen for our members for the months to come. Fact is, this tax was rolled out very quickly. A lot of the information for our members wasn't even available until just recently in the last month or so. So it's been difficult all around.
And there are still plenty of questions.
We have had 3 phone calls just in the last week with the government program trying to decipher the rules and regulations online that are available. The information isn't quite readily available for us. And it's just, the whole team in the office sit together and we read through the regulations and try to decipher them because there is so many rules and regulations.
Hanley questions the timing of the tax.
The whole fact that we're adding another tax right after a pandemic is a huge discussion that needs to be had. There's a lot of businesses that really struggled during the pandemic, and I think we just needed more time to recover from the pandemic before they implemented something.
Hanley hopes the provincial government will continue to work on streamlining the guidelines for the sugary drink tax. Both Hanley and Cormier say they're expecting the next weeks, maybe even months, to be full of questions for retailers. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Police are investigating after a string of car fires overnight. Here's how it looked in St. John's last night. 8 vehicles were set on fire. It started shortly after 9 p.m. at a lawn care business on Old Pennywell Road. Fire crews were on the scene working to extinguish 3 trucks belonging to Green Lawn. A few hours later, police were called to Cabot Ford on Kenmount Road where 5 pickup trucks were on fire. No injuries were reported. Police are looking for any witnesses or video footage from those areas. Well, the Atlantic premiers are calling for more time to submit their carbon pricing plans to Ottawa. Nova Scotia's premier wrote a letter today to the federal environment minister on behalf of the 4 provinces requesting an extension. This comes just a day before Ottawa's deadline. Provinces are meant to submit their plans by tomorrow on how they'll price carbon until 2030. Now, the letter says the Atlantic premiers are concerned that the increased cost of energy will amplify inflationary pressures and that any discussions on carbon pricing should prioritize lessening people's financial burden.
You know, at the end of the day, the federal government is the federal government and they make the decisions they make. At this provincial level, we make the decisions we make. And somewhere we have to get together because it's Canadians that are going to be hurting by these changes if the 2 parties can't come together and come up with a solution that's palatable for everybody.
Well, that was PEI's Minister of Environment. More than one opposition member is suggesting today's letter amounts to political posturing. Politicians in Nova Scotia and PEI say the Atlantic governments have all had more than a year to prepare their carbon pricing submissions, and today's effort seems too little, too late.
Not done what is required to satisfy the federal requirements. To say otherwise is simply untrue. And it's essentially a public relations strategy designed to confuse Nova Scotians and distract them from the fact that this government is not doing what's required of them.
It's not new news that carbon pricing is the law of the land in Canada. And to ask for more time when they just kind of throwing up a Hail Mary, I think is disingenuous to say the least.
Climate emergency is a true emergency, and we cannot treat this by, oh, can we have an extension to the crappy plan that we currently have? Let's make sure that we treat this as the emergency that it is. Let's deal with it now. Let's put the money that we need to put there as a government, and let's give the money back to islanders that they deserve.
Well, here in this province, the price of gas was up today, but only slightly. The Public Utilities Board has increased the maximum price by just under 1 cent a litre. The cost of regular unleaded fuel on the Avalon Peninsula is now nearly $1.75 a litre. Propane prices are also up by about 1.5 cents a litre. Other fuels are down. Diesel, stove, and furnace oil have all dropped by about 2 cents a litre. Well, the Canadian Fast Pitch Championships are back after a 2-year pandemic hiatus, and they're happening in St. John's. The Galway Hitmen are aiming for a three-peat. They won the last 2 tournaments in 2018 and 2019. The Hitmen are up against teams from across the country. So far, they're 2-1. They're facing another team from this province tonight, the Bigs Physio and Co., and will play a team from Saskatoon tomorrow.
Well, the 4th tropical storm formed earlier today. It's been fairly quiet through most of the hurricane season. I'll talk to the Canadian Hurricane Center coming up. It's been a relatively quiet hurricane season so far, but things are starting to heat up in the tropics with Tropical Storm Danielle and 2 other areas of interest that experts are keeping an eye on. Well, joining me now is Ian Hubbard with the Canadian Hurricane Center. So Ian, back in late May, we were expecting an above average hurricane season, but so far there have only been 4 named storms. So can you explain what was happening over the last couple of months?
Yeah, certainly so far this year, it's been relatively quiet with an extended period over the past several weeks with no activity whatsoever. But Danielle formed this morning, and we are starting to see a little bit more activity now. One of the main reasons it was so quiet is that the Sahara dust plume that tends to blow over parts of the Atlantic midsummer was blocking out some of the sunlight and the energy, and also providing some dry conditions to the areas where the tropical storms typically form. So now that we're past that, we will start to see some more activity in those areas going forward.
So how have things changed, though, in the last week or so?
Well, we've moved past that peak time when the Sahara dust plume would have its effects on the Atlantic. And as we move forward, we're also approaching the peak of hurricane season, with the climatological peak being on September 10th. So this really is the time of year where things do start to ramp up. And even though it's been quiet so far, we still have 2 months of peak hurricane season left, and then another month after that where it's still officially hurricane season in November. So there's still lots of time for more storms to form and things to possibly catch up.
Yeah, certainly it isn't over until it's over, that's for sure. So how do you see climate change affecting hurricane seasons going forward?
Well, certainly that's a very important area of study right now. And the main thoughts that are out there in the scientific world is that climate change won't necessarily increase the frequency of storms going forward, but certainly the storms that do form, they are expected to be a little more powerful and have more strength to them. So that's something to take going forward to be aware of.
Yeah, and while there's no immediate threat of any hurricanes to the Atlantic provinces right now, what are some things that people can do to prepare?
Yeah, well, certainly the thing I like to tell people is always pay attention to the forecast. You know, get the latest forecast, find out what storms are out there and where they're expected to go. You can do that on our website, hurricanes.ca, or we also have a Twitter account if you wanted to follow updates there. And after that, I would say, you know, this is a good time of year to actually get ready and have your emergency kit ready, or be prepared and think of the things you're going to have to do if a storm's bearing down on us. And if you want more information on that, there's a website, getprepared.ca, which will give you lots of tips, tell you the types of things you should be putting in your emergency kit should a storm come our way and we have to react to it.
That's right. And as you mentioned, the peak of hurricane season is September 10th, ends on November 30th. Ian Hubbard, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you.
That was interesting. And so we have Tropical Storm Danielle that's formed. What's the status with that? What's the latest there?
Yeah, so it does look like it will stay well south of Newfoundland and Labrador, but let's just take a look at what's going on right now. We haven't really had a whole lot to talk about as far as tropical systems. That's probably a good thing. But right now, winds are at about 95 kilometers per hour and about 110 kilometer per hour wind gusts. But if we take a look at the spaghetti plots, or what the models are predicting, you see it hangs out for a little while, but there's the track. What most of the models are pointing at is well south and then out of the way. So that's certainly good news. But there are a couple more systems that I talked about yesterday, but right now we're looking at 2 more. So one, about a 60% chance of forming. The other one over there, not so much, but definitely going to keep an eye on the tropics for sure over the next couple of days. So a little closer to home right now, taking a look at what's going on right now. A warm day. If you missed it a little bit earlier, I was talking about Twillingate and how it was we're September 1st and already broke a record. That is the warmest temperature ever recorded in September. Terra Nova, 28 degrees as well, and those temperatures pretty much across the board are in the mid to high 20s, except along the south coast between 21 and 20 and 21. But lots of heat even up across Labrador as well. Makkovik, 27 degrees today, and same thing for Happy Valley. Valley, Goose Bay, that colder air is towards Lab West. But you can see where all that humidity is as well, even up across the Big Land, but certainly across the island. It's feeling more like 32 in Twillingate right now and 30 in Badger. So we do have some more humidity on the way. The reason for that is out ahead of this system, we're seeing that southerly flow, or southeasterly flow in this case, pumping all of that moisture further north. But we do have a lot of moisture associated with this cold front that's sweeping through, and we're seeing some rain that is heavy at times, and that will generally continue. And you can see where all of that rain is coming from. There's Tropical Storm Danielle, so we are seeing lots of moisture associated with that as well, but it's tapping into that moisture that's headed towards the island, or already towards the island, but it's funneling towards the island and will continue as we head into Friday. So Environment Canada does have that rainfall warning still in place for Burgeo and the Canagra Peninsula, and we are looking at somewhere between 30 to as much as 50 millimeters of rain falling through tonight and into tomorrow morning. And then as we head through the afternoon on Friday, it looks like some lingering showers will continue, which could bring some of those amounts up a bit higher as well for the southeastern portion of the Avalon, so about 20 to 30 millimeters of rain. Taking a look at the future tracker just to time out that rain. Some of that rain even making its way towards southeastern portions of the Big Land, so expect some heavy showers tonight. But that will move from west to east, and in behind that, some drier air behind it, and the winds shift a little bit. Not quite super dry, but still looking at some drier air. And as that system continues to track a little bit further east, we will see that heavy rain associated with it as well. Some lingering showers, the story up across the Big Land. Temperatures tonight for you in the west look fairly chilly. Lab West anyway, 6 degrees tonight as your overnight low. Otherwise, temperatures are cooling a little bit between 13 and 16 degrees for the west coast and southeastern portions of Labrador. Essentially, the eastern half of the island will stay quite mild tonight, anywhere from 19 to 20 degrees, and those winds a bit brisk as well out of the southeast, between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour. Towards the coast, you may even see some of those gusts around 60 kilometers per hour. As that cold front moves off, we should see the end of the heavy rain, but likely some lingering showers will continue for the eastern half of the Avalon tomorrow. Otherwise, things should clear out quite nicely, in fact, across the island and then up across Labrador as well. May see a few cloudy periods in the mix, but overall, your Friday is looking pretty nice at this point. Temperatures tomorrow will hover around 24 degrees, but this will be the most humid day. So your humidex values will be again in the low to mid 20s or 30s through the day, with those winds breezy in the morning, but they'll ease as the day goes on. And we may even hear a few rumbles of thunder as well. As you head towards central, temperatures between 25 and 26 degrees along the south coast, cooler again thanks to onshore flow, but really much cooler towards the west coast, between 20 and 21 degrees through your day. A little warmer for the Humber Valley, and then for the northern peninsula, you're still looking at your showers lingering through a good chunk of the day, but the sun should come out around 20 degrees for St. Anthony, and then a little cooler for you for coastal areas of Labrador, but still in the 20s, except as you head a little bit further north into the teens, and then teens the story across the rest of the Big Land as well. Looks like that's going to stick around, but I will get into the long range forecast coming up.
Well, earlier in the show, we reported on a letter sent by the Atlantic premiers today. All 4 provinces are calling for more time to submit their carbon pricing plans to Ottawa. Well, the federal minister has responded to that letter. In a statement to CBC, Stephen Guilbeault says he'll work with the premiers to identify solutions to their concerns about home heating, but Guilbeault isn't budging either. He says tomorrow's deadline stands, and the provinces have had 1 year to prepare their submissions on how to price pollution. The minister says 8 in 10 families get back more than they pay through the federal system.
He had a javelin thrower, and he had a discus thrower, and he had Parthenon there, and he had the columns. The gym looked absolutely stunning.
A cover-up in Burin. After 25 years, this larger-than-life mural has been painted over. Well, most people wouldn't see a wind turbine and think, just look at that hydrogen farm. But a massive wind energy project proposed in Stephenville would be exactly that. The Prime Minister and Germany's Chancellor recently reached a deal for Canada to provide hydrogen to Germany. So how will it all work, and where does ammonia come into the picture? Here and now, Zach Audi found an expert to show us how it works.
We all know that wind can be used to make electricity, but how can wind be used to make hydrogen? A huge energy project is planned in Stephenville, a first of its kind in Canada, with 164 wind turbines. But electricity from wind isn't the goal. The goal is green hydrogen. Well, technically green ammonia, but we'll get to that. Let's start with hydrogen. Most abundant element in the universe, number 1 on the periodic table. You can find hydrogen in places like the sun, or closer to home, it's the H in H2O.
So this is water molecule. So we have 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms. So together this makes H2O. And what we want to do is to separate these bonds into oxygen and hydrogen. My name is Kevin Pope. I am an associate professor here at Memorial University. My specializations are renewable energy, particularly wind energy and hydrogen production.
The plan in Stephenville is to use wind energy to power a process called water electrolysis.
So this is a very simple demonstration of electrolysis, of water electrolysis, where we're splitting the H2O into its constituents H and O, or oxygen and hydrogen. I put baking soda in and stir it up. Now we have our 2 pieces of metal. So these will be electrodes. And we can take our positive and negative terminals of our power source here. If you look closely, you can start to see bubbles forming, particularly on this black line here, which is the negative side. So on one side, we have hydrogen gas coming off, and on the other side, we would have oxygen gas coming off. So all we need to do is capture this gas coming off these electrodes, and then we have hydrogen stored, and we're storing this electricity energy in the form of hydrogen.
So water electrolysis uses hydrogen like a battery to store electricity. But the key to the Stephenville project is that the electricity being stored would come from a green, renewable source, wind. That's what makes it green hydrogen. But there's one more step. Remember, the goal isn't actually hydrogen, it's ammonia. So why do they want ammonia instead of hydrogen? And what is ammonia?
Ammonia is a simple gas. It has a nitrogen atom with 3 hydrogen atoms attached to it. One of the shortcomings of hydrogen is that it's actually quite difficult to store. It's very light and it takes up a lot of space. So trying to store that and ship that over across the ocean is not an easy process. So it's a great option to convert it to another molecule, which is easier to transport.
Just as the wind energy would be stored in hydrogen, the hydrogen would be stored in ammonia. Simple enough, but to make it all happen, you need lots of wind, lots of water, and a way to transport the finished product. You can't find that combination of things just anywhere, but you can find them right here. So that's how wind from Newfoundland and Labrador could become power for other parts of the world. A little chemistry goes a long way.
Well, next we want to take you to the Burin Peninsula, where a 25-year-old mural at the Donald C. Jameson School has been painted over. The gigantic mural depicted 2 bare-chested male Olympians. It was painted in 1996 by Rod Beck, who was a substitute art teacher at the time. Now, much to his shock and dismay, he discovered that his creation was recently painted over. Now, Beck isn't able to speak with us about it, but joining me now now is the former principal of Donald C. Jameson Academy, who had a hand in creating the mural over 2 decades ago. Bert Squires, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Let's start with your reaction. What did you think and feel when you found out that the mural, that piece of art, was painted over?
Well, I've known about it for maybe 2 or 3 months now. And my first reaction was, no, I can't believe this. It was just not something that I could understand. But the second thought I had, well, if the school no longer wants it or it's no longer appreciated, I should keep my nose out of it and leave it alone. Unfortunately, or perhaps not unfortunately, people have gotten back to me really bothered, really upset, both for the destruction of that particular mural and of, the disrespect, I'll call it, for the artist Rod Beck. And a guy by the name of Wayne McIsaac also helped him with that mural.
Can you give us a bit of the backstory of the mural? Because you were there at the time. Can you tell us about the design choices and what went into painting it?
Well, in '93, I went to Jameson, and my first reaction was that the school needed to be freshened up. There was not a lot of color. There was not a pretty basic institutional colors and whatnot. And the gym, of course, the gym of the school has always been my comfort zone, I suppose. And as you're aware, I competed in the Olympics. I competed worldwide for numerous years, made the Olympics in 1980, which got boycotted, then kept going, went to Olympics in '84, trained like a mad dog, did great, finished 5th. After that, came home. He came in with this idea that he'd do an Olympic type mural depicting the old Olympics. So you could see from the mural that was there, he had a javelin thrower and he had a discus thrower and he had the Parthenon there and he had the columns, and it was absolutely stunning.
The school district did give us a statement that I'm curious to get your thoughts on. The statement said that teaching staff noted that white/light colored walls were preferred in the gymnasium as it allows for more visibility of balls and equipment during practice and play. So essentially saying without the mural, they can play better in the gym because they can see the balls better. What do you make of that?
Every single morning, I went in the gym for drop-in sports. Every single lunch hour, I went in, and I rarely missed a day. And the kids in there never, I promise you, never had any trouble because those murals were affecting them. That's absolute, pure, unadulterated, just fabricated nonsense.
And the school district also said that current students need to see themselves represented in their schools. And I mean, certainly not a lot of gender diversity with that mural. It's 2 giant men. Do you think that that's a valid thing?
Well, yes, I agree 100%. I have 2 daughters. When Rod came up with this idea, it was on the ancient Olympics, and that was the motive. That was what he ended up with. One of the things I said to Rod, sort of a rhetorical question, Rod, if I got some paint for you and a few brushes, do you think you could have went in that gym and done something different? And then I answered it for him at the same time. I said, of course you would. Maybe do a montage of 3 female athletes, the girl in the pool, the female soccer player and the female hockey player. That could have been done. It wouldn't have cost as much as it costs to have people paint that wall.
Now, the athletes in the mural, they're not naked, but they're not far from it either. There's a lot of bare skin, a lot of muscles. Do you think that had anything to do with why it was erased?
For the life of me, I don't know what the rationale would be. My thoughts are because it was biased with respect to the two male athletes. And I very much appreciate that. I certainly do. We're using the Olympics to stimulate people, to motivate people. We're putting our athletes up there, and the athletes are out there speaking about the benefits of fitness and health and everything else. And certainly, God, that got to be better than the graffiti you'll find down under the wharf somewhere.
Well, Bert Squires, it's an interesting story. Thank you so much for speaking with me about it today.
My pleasure. You have a nice day.
Tomorrow on the St. John's Morning Show, the price of milk, like many grocery items and other essentials, is on the rise, but will that be enough to keep local dairy farmers in business? A farmer in Goulds will weigh in. And on Labrador Morning, a respiratory therapist in training returns home from volunteering in Guatemala. She shares that story and her plans for the future on tomorrow's show. The tight job market has some employers taking creative, even bold steps to attract workers. It seems trades are having a hard time enticing newcomers, but a plumbing contractor on Prince Edward Island thinks he's found a solution. He's offering a job as well as complete training. No experience necessary. The CBC's Brittany Spencer has that story.
When Brad McCauley started his career, he knew next to nothing about plumbing, but he was eager to get into the trade and wanted to learn, and he found an employer who was willing to take a chance and bring him aboard. 20 years later, he owns his own company. Now he wants to give someone else the chance to get into the field.
I just want to give something back that was given to me, so to speak, give someone a chance that could have been in my position or is in my position.
McCauley put out a call for a new employee, and for this job, you don't need any experience. Instead, he's looking for somebody ready to learn and keen on a future in the trade, to give them the option to enter the workforce right away.
Again, not everybody's made for a classroom, and that's okay. Like I say, the building community is just growing and growing. And, I'm just trying to, create a spark for someone.
McCauley says many in the industry are struggling to find staff, and this might be a way to solve that. The Construction Association of PEI agrees.
Well, this is becoming a very common practice, more so now than ever before, because of the lack of labor and the availability of skilled tradespeople. We need to do, more. We have to be more creative to create those opportunities, bring awareness about the opportunities, and, give people a chance.
That's something the association is also trying to do here at its training center, where people can take workshops to discover new trades and see if it's for them, something Sanderson says will help boost retention. As for McCauley, he's had dozens of applications come in, from young high school graduates to those looking for a career change. He says he'll read every one and looks forward to welcoming the newest member of his team. Brittany Spencer, CBC News, Charlottetown.
A new federal tax kicks in today. It adds up to 20% of the cost of some luxury goods, including pricey cars, planes, and expensive boats. The federal government says those who are doing well should be willing to pay, but the experts are questioning the effectiveness of the tax. The CBC's Peter Cowan has the details.
This thing is built for the family for the whole weekend.
This top-of-the-line fishing boat comes with a top-of-the-line price, about $500,000 fully loaded, plus tax. And starting this week, a new luxury tax will add up to 10% to that price.
We've had a couple of cancellations already on our big boats.
It's not just the tax. Inflation has driven up the price of raw materials and labor.
We've experienced about a 30% increase across the board in price increases. It's becoming a pricey endeavor going out in the ocean, having some fun with your family.
But if you can afford a boat like this, the federal finance minister says you can afford to contribute more.
People who are doing really, really well should feel comfortable supporting everybody else.
It's not just boats. New planes and cars worth more than $100,000 are also facing the new tax. It's expected to bring in between $140 to $165 million.
The scheme of the overall finances of the government of Canada, $163 million, doesn't even qualify as rounding error.
This former federal finance official says the tax doesn't make sense, especially when it leaves out other luxuries like expensive jewels, big RVs, or pricey cottages. He says if the government wants the rich to pay more, they can increase the income tax.
I don't know what the logic is of a luxury tax. It comes from a populist notion to somehow ding the wealthy, but we already do that. We have a progressive income tax system.
Mark Delaney says he's worried his workers will be the real ones to pay for this tax if the orders dry up and he has to lay people off.
There's going to be some pain here to go through.
The United States introduced a similar luxury tax in 1991. Less than 2 years later, it was scrapped after it cost tens of thousands of jobs. The boating industry in this country is hoping the government learns the lesson there and scraps the tax here. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Ottawa.
For now, Ballard and his team are keeping the Titanic's exact location off Newfoundland a secret. That's because they fear commercial salvage companies might try to dredge up pieces of the wreck.
Well, back in September of 1985, a highly competitive race was underway. Crews from at least 7 American news networks were gunning for the first pictures of the Titanic. Some even descended on St. John's. As you just saw, the famous ship had just been found somewhere off the coast of Newfoundland, and everyone wanted to know, what did it look like down there? Rick Seward has this special report from the archives.
We've been waiting for these pictures for 3 days. A helicopter tried to get to the expedition ship yesterday but had to turn back because of weather. But today it got through, and with pictures of a shipwreck that has tantalized and stirred imaginations for 73 years. This is the base of one of the cranes from the back of the ship. Here's another portion of one of the cranes from the back of the ship. This is the front part of the Titanic. Those circles you see in the middle of the screen are the spools for the chain. A piece of the chain is visible in the top part of the picture. These are 2 towers from the front of the ship, which fell off as the Titanic drifted to the bottom of the ocean. The first French member of the expedition came ashore on today's helicopter, but he played the whole thing down.
Titanic. We found the Titanic, that's right. How did it feel as a mariner, as a seaman yourself? How did it feel to find that legendary ship? It was a great discovery, and that's all. It's the end of a technical adventure. Not exactly the end, but the mirror, and that's all. That's all I have to say.
The research vessel is on its way back to the United States, and news conferences are being arranged in the United States and France. The best pictures are likely being saved for them. Rick Seward, CBC News, St. John's.
Cardinal Albino Luciani, Patriarch of Venice, a man of humble origins. He has chosen the papal name of John Paul I.
Pope John Paul I is set to be beatified on Sunday by present-day Pope Francis. Beatification is the last step before possible sainthood. Pope John Paul I held the Catholic Church's highest chair for only 33 days before his death in 1978. The beatification process of the first Pope John Paul has taken 25 years. Yesterday was the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana's death. The late Princess of Wales died in a car crash in Paris in August of 1997. Decades on, Diana's life and her story are still resonating with her admirers. The CBC's Chris Brown has this report from London.
Diana's death a quarter century ago was a seismic event for Great Britain and its monarchy.
25 years she's been gone and people still remembering her every day, like myself. I came here in 1997 when all the flowers were everywhere.
Outside her former home, Kensington Palace, some fans shared a cake in her honour.
Princess Diana shared things with people. We want the same thing. We want to share with people.
Yeah. Some of these tributes are quite lengthy and also very personal, touching on her sons William and Harry. We'll watch over your sons, their wives, and your grandchildren and your family. And this one here, your light shines through in the faces of your children and your grandchildren. There was a memorial in Paris too, outside the tunnel where her limo slammed into a concrete pillar at high speed. Diana, who was 36, died a short time later in hospital.
She made you feel like you mattered.
Diana's legacy is especially poignant for Tessie Ojo, who administers the Diana Awards for young people who demonstrate compassion for others.
I remember vividly watching her, for someone of color, watching her hold this little girl who I think she had AIDS or her parents had AIDS. Nobody else in her position had ever happened. And for me, I was that little girl. And suddenly, you were visible to her.
Just as Diana was notoriously mistreated by other royals, her sons William and Harry have fallen out over the allegedly poor treatment of Harry's wife, Meghan.
People should expect the real me in this, and probably the me that they've never gotten to know.
Controversially, Meghan just launched her new podcast, knowing the focus would be on Diana, says this royal watcher.
She is married to Prince Harry, and it is part of his legacy, but I think that the timing could have been different.
The soap opera over her sons and her ex-husband and future king, Charles, keeps Diana's name in the news, but people here say the example she set helping others is why her legacy endures. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Okay, time for a look at the long-range forecast now, ahead to the weekend.
Yeah, but first I have a question for you. Have you ever swam in the ocean?
Yes, but with a wetsuit.
Because it's always freezing.
So cold.
Yeah, it definitely is. But let me take a look at some of the numbers. You know, the ocean temperatures over the last couple of weeks, I guess. It's very above seasonal, and it totally makes sense because it has been warm for most of the summer. And in fact, look at those temperatures, 17 to 21 degrees is the ocean temperatures around areas for eastern Newfoundland. So definitely some warm temperatures. And if you are in the Tickle Swim on September 17th, you're going to really like those temperatures. Maybe you can ditch the wetsuit. We'll see. But yeah, so we do have lots of warm air. And it's going to continue for the most part. Some drier air, though, as we head through the weekend. That cold front will sweep through, take some of that humidity with it, and actually looking like a pretty beautiful Saturday for a good chunk of the island. We will see some cloud cover move in across the Big Land and some showers late day Saturday, but overall Saturday really right across the board will actually be fairly nice, with those temperatures sitting somewhere between 19 and 23 degrees and up across the Big Land. Similar temperatures as well. Around 19 in Lab City and between 20 and 22. So actually beautiful September weather for sure for the first week. Now taking a look at Saturday evening, again going to stay fairly beautiful. We will see those showers along another cold front sweeping through the Big Land, and that's going to bring some showers with it. In behind that, some colder air for your Sunday, and really you're going to see that a little bit sooner on Saturday for the west as that cold front sweeps through. So down to 13 degrees as your daytime high on Sunday, and then showers will move right along with it. So between 17 and 19 for the rest of the Big Land, and then staying sunny for most of the island. So it does look like a fairly nice weekend. Somewhere between 20 and 25 degrees, comfortable temperatures, and lots of sunshine through the afternoon on Sunday. So taking a look at the long-range forecast. We'll probably see some drizzle on Saturday night develop with some fog patches for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, but overall Sunday should clear out nicely. And then for Monday, a mix of sun and cloud, and then by Tuesday we're looking at some showers returning, but those temperatures staying somewhere between 18 and 20 degrees, and overnight lows really not dipping too much out of that. For central Newfoundland, a nice stretch of dry weather there for you as we head through Monday. By Tuesday we'll see a return of those showers and about 18 degrees. And then for western Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar forecast, except those showers will likely move in a bit sooner for you on Monday, and then some heavy rain, or some rain I should say, expected for your Tuesday, around 19 degrees. Now for eastern Labrador, we'll see that cool down. It'll rebound a bit by the time we get into midweek next week, but overall looking at a nice stretch as we get into the beginning. And then for western Labrador, some showers for you as well, and temperatures in the teens. I wanted to share this lovely shot of the trail, Fox Island Trail in Champneys East. Thank you so much to Marjorie for that. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to my Facebook page, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's so nice. A nice place to lay down a blanket,
or swim,
have a picnic, or swim. That's right. the water is certainly warm enough for that right now, as you were saying. Well, that's it for us on this Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Good night.